not a good look for our profession.
How in the name of common sense did this ever get this far? Vaccines are not seek and destroy missions.
Because he was so severe.
This is nuts.
One of the top 20 things that she has discovered with her research company, Progenobiome, medicine has been corrupted. Where we go from here now, I don't know. Well, it doesn't work.
So angry. Punishable with jail time.
Literally, this makes me believe we live in the Matrix.
Like, deadliest year in U.S. history.
It wasn't a question of if, but when.
First red.
If it doesn't work and it's safe, put it in a little Fauci Pez dispenser, give it to the patient, and shut the family up.
It's going to get worse and worse and worse.
He gave Fauci an award for being a hero of the pandemic.
This has been a problem.
These were lies.
Let's talk about the healthcare professionals supporting this.
In the meantime, what was going on behind the scenes?
Irony of the whole thing is,
Harvey's 100% correct.
This is freaking annoying.
ultimately we need to have hope for America.
What is going on here? What has poisoned your mind? Buckle up, kids. Welcome back to BS Free MD. We are in our lovely new studio and we could not be happier. And we are going to bring you, I don't want to say a great story because it's not. It's actually very concerning. And we have been dealing with this primarily May, but of course, being the loving husband, I hopefully am being supportive. But we're going to tell you a story about how we came to discover that May really is suffering probably from long COVID, what we think that means, and hopefully how to sort through this so if you or one of your loved ones is suffering with this, you can walk through the minefield of potential treatments, because we really think that that's really what it is. So let's start off, May. What have you been experiencing for really the last 3 years? Explain what you've been feeling, what you've been going through, and then let's talk a little bit about where you think that came from.
Okay, so before I jump into what you wanted me to talk about, I'm going to say that this is what we've been doing from the beginning. I mean, our podcast was born out of answering your questions about COVID right in real time from our home library, doing FaceTime lives and being right there in the news and following everything, working in the clinics. So Tim has gotten basically a residency degree in immunology, reading all the things. And over time, as we've had so many experts on our show, we've learned so much, been so educated and been privileged to have met them and bring you all this information. And we've gone through COVID, we've covered other stories over the seasons. And I got to the point where, Tim and I talk about the content of the show a lot and what's entertaining, what you guys really want to hear about. COVID is always still in the news, but I was getting burned out on it to the point of I'm like, everyone's covering it. It's kind of yesterday. I'm tired of it. Although we see the ramifications of friends, loved ones, just like you, having severe onset of cardiac disease out of nowhere, having vascular events occur, turbo cancers out of the blue, a dear friend who's still struggling, family members that were convinced are affected by long COVID that don't want to really admit it. But yet, so we want to cover this stuff and talk about it, but deep in my heart, I am so done. It was so traumatic. I've got my own little PTSD, I think, from just working in the clinics. And I'm like, let's talk about some other stuff. HRT is a big thing that is now hit the news cycle. And I'm going to talk about that here a little more depth because that became a forefront runner for me over this last couple of years, thinking I was struggling with that. And so I wanted to preface what you asked about how I was so done and that my head was almost in the sand with COVID, but I'm here covering, the stories and with guests like Dr. Peter McCullough with his research and talking about spike protein detox and all that important stuff because it's still current and important, even though I might have been getting tired of it. So let me just say what's been happening with my health. And, I've been very pulled back. I've been doing the episodes with Tim, but in a setback manner and not contributing as much because I've been really sick. And it really started before we made our journey here to Florida. It's actually coming up almost 3 years ago, March of 2023 to be exact, because I can remember almost the day when I felt like I was going crazy. And there had been a lot going on. There had been COVID. I had had a hip replacement, and we put that out on social channels. You got to see what was happening with that. Moving family members, selling our home, selling my dad's home, lots of work stress. COVID was happening. I had another major surgery on my elbow. And, I had gone through menopause and was on the HRT, and I was getting weird symptoms and thinking, oh yeah, this is stress. There's been a lot, and I'm a postmenopausal woman on HRT that can't figure it out. So I'm going to summarize really quickly what's been going on in the last 3 years and what my symptoms are, and then we'll get into what the heck? How could I have long COVID and not know it? 2 doctors living in it just kind of makes me think back to when I had postpartum depression and we kind of ignored it. So my spiral downward is not atypical, and it's not the typical long COVID where most people have the exhaustion, fatigue, cardiorespiratory type symptoms, maybe a clot, a cardiovascular event, a myocarditis. There's actually, we know now, kind of 2 pathways. But for me,
What are the 2 pathways?
So they are more, like I said, the people that have the post-exertional fatigue and have more respiratory myocarditis, cardiac involvement, microclots, and hypoxemia. Exactly what you'd expect.
Exactly what you would
post-viral.
think, because there's long Epstein-Barr virus, there's long
Epstein-Barr, right.
There's Epstein-Barr. There's so there's been long viral syndromes as long as there's been virus.
Right, and if you look up long COVID, that's what it's mainly going to tell you. It's going to say flu-like symptoms with fatigue, loss of appetite, no energy, exhaustion, some upper respiratory lingering symptoms, dropping oxygen, hypoxemia, that type of thing. But we now know, and as I've listened to numerous podcasts, and all these people are eyes wide open.
And we've talked to a lot of these people.
And
They're
he's
friends
been on our show. The other emerging thing is that COVID and the spike protein, which binds to those ACE receptors, and those are throughout the body, not just in your respiratory system, cardiovascular system, but they are in the neurologic system, which is your brain and nerve tissue. Your gut is filled with these mast cells, which perform a lot of duties. If you don't know what mast cells are, we'll get into that later. But pretty much the fact is that there's this other branch of long COVID that is often connected to people that have a history of autoimmune, but even EDS or Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, hypermobility type genetic thing. You don't have to necessarily have that, but it's triggering more neurologic and GI and autoimmune symptoms. So what are those exactly? On the neurologic thing, people can have nerve damage, but primarily central nervous system. So anxiety, that comes and goes. Insomnia, and it can also trigger just panic attacks, but usually not related to anything stressful, that kind of come and go. Just feeling overwhelmed. The GI symptoms are pretty much like, I would say, an anaphylaxis of the gut type reaction. What's happening is there's all kinds of mediators being released.
Sounds super fun.
But histamine is the gist of what's happening behind of all of this. Histamine is a neurochemical. It does a lot of things. People think of histamine as in terms of allergies, and for sure that's why people can have rashes, runny nose, respiratory things like asthma, congestion, sinus things. But histamine also, like I said, affects the neurologic system. There's histamine receptors in the cardiovascular system. But in the gut, what it does is it triggers the release of all these chemicals that affect your GI system in the way that usually what's happening is you're getting diarrhea, inability to digest food. And so it's pretty much like...
so does that, to kind of not get ahead of ourselves, but so does that actually have an effect on like the gut microbiome as well? Because, you know, you're pooping way more, your
Absolutely.
GI tract is
Absolutely.
just like on red alert all the time.
Right, right.
You know, and like all of these things that people talk about, like leaky gut and,
Correct.
you know, SIBO, which is an accumulation of certain bacteria, on and on.
So basically there is, so this group of histamine issues is actually called MCAS, or MCAS for short. It's actually one of those things we didn't learn about in med school. We didn't know about it years ago. It didn't really exist. There was this constellation of, well, you have some weird autoimmune type stuff. We don't know what it is. Or you get labeled into, oh, you go to the respiratory doctor because you have asthma, allergies. Oh, you've got weird rashes, go to the dermatologist. Oh, you got anxiety. Here's an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety med, where a lot of it is actually tied to histamine problems.
Which is very interesting, because a lot of this has to do with what we call epigenetics, which is kind of how you're wired and how you metabolize things. So, and it gets very, very confusing, because on the one side, you know, we're good friends with Sabine Hazen, who we have a lot of respect for as far as the gut microbiome. But she says, okay, so eat sauerkraut, eat kimchi, et cetera, which is great because it's amazing for your gut microbiome. But those are super high histamine foods. So people are like, well, I'm eating all this stuff. I should be feeling way better because I'm nourishing my gut, but now my gut's worse because I have diarrhea and all this. Well, it's because you might be somebody that has what's called MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome, and you're just dumping more and more histamine. So there's no one size fits all medicine. And that's a big problem, and we're going to get more into that, is that, you know, Western medicine has been one size fits all, right? Algorithms. You have this blood pressure, you get this pill, et cetera, et cetera. And we do the same thing in alternative and integrative medicine as well.
Right.
In functional medicine, it's like one size. It's not one size.
So, you know, to get out of the weeds a little bit, so yes, you can have MCAS and histamine issues genetically all your life. And looking back, and to tell a bit about my story, looking back now, you know, like we didn't know about these things in medicine when we were in school. All my life I've had trouble. However, what happens to people that may be predisposed, or even maybe they knew they had all these issues with the COVID virus binding to these the ACE receptors? It is now gone exponentially crazy and bad. So you might have had a mild case before, now you're severe. You might have not even really had it before, just had the genetic predisposition. Now you're having all these symptoms and suffering. You might already be treated and things are out of control. So I'm going to go back and say, for me, when I started feeling horrible and crazy...
Okay, you got to describe what horrible and crazy is. I don't think that you were crazy. I think that you were having... I mean,
well,
you have to understand what this... this has been... May will have 2 or 3 days in a row that are just fantastic. We're doing all of the stuff that we like to do. And then it is absolute abject panic all night long.
Okay.
Like completely out of the blue. Like you need to stress the level of suffering. And this is nothing compared to what some people have suffered with this. And then how we came to this answer of what it may be the root cause. We don't know for sure, but what may be the root cause.
Well, and I think it's important to share this because I know a lot of people are suffering, and I'm reading it in forums and they don't know. And it's going to get a little tough for me because last night was a very tough night, and I've been awake since 4 when this histamine dump hits. But so when it started, I thought, because I was experimenting with hormones, that I overdosed myself on testosterone, full disclosure, because I was starting to get super irritable, anxious. My skin was breaking out. I was wanting to pace. I felt amped up, like an adrenaline surge, because you are getting adrenaline surges dumps happening. I couldn't sleep. You get the wired but tired, that whole feeling of you just drank a bunch of caffeine. So it's like you're stimulated. So then you're not sleeping. So then you're getting a little bit psychotic. But then other things on top of it. It's like your bowels get out of control and you think, oh, it's just because I'm stressed. And there's diarrhea, and it's very inconvenient because this is like dysentery type diarrhea for me. But I would also say it went beyond that because I knew I wasn't depressed, but something was making severely anxious. And I started to feel suicidal because I'm lacking sleep. I feel like I just can't control the not the thoughts in my head, but I'm just so amped up and it doesn't stop. And I get
and it's
panicky.
more of a physical manifestation of panic, right?
Yeah,
it's not like
it is.
you're upset or sad
Right.
about something. It's like you have this overwhelming physical
but you
sense
just want
of
it to
panic.
stop. And along the way, and things have gotten worse, when you wake up in the middle of the night, when the histamine dumps, I would get literally like restless leg syndrome, uncontrolled jerking movements, and I'm like, what the heck is this? But that feeling like you just got to move your body to, like, you want to go for a run and run for 10 miles and not stop. And the shakes and the tremors, and depends on the severity of it. But so that's how things started for me, not in that severity, but also with hot flashes. And of course, what happened was everyone's like, your estrogen is too low. You must take more. Okay, so I'm going to start by saying I messed around with that for a long time because it sure felt like low estrogen, which can cause all these things of anxiety and waking up at night, hot flashes. But estrogen is a very potent histamine releasing substance as well. And if you've been in the menopause space or hormone replacement space long enough, you'll come to learn that testosterone and progesterone block histamine, estrogen liberates it. I'll just go on to say that there's a lot of women and people throughout their cycles and throughout their life that can tell that they're feeling awful and crazy-ish and uncontrolled, and estrogen rises, it can make things worse. Progesterone balance with estrogen is very important, but I was raising my estrogen and worsening the problem. I was getting worse. So I'm going to fast forward and say that, we got here to Florida and I was supposed to be feeling better because we moved to the great paradise, and I'm getting worse. I'm feeling like a recluse because I'm not sleeping at night. And then this panic would last till about noon. And I really literally have to just sit there and stare in the sun and deep breathe. And then by about 2 o'clock, I would come down and feel kind of okay. But I had no energy to be able to do anything. And I messed around with these stupid hormones for the next year and a half, chasing that avenue to the point that I think I've tried almost everything there is in the hormone replacement world, and I've given myself a degree, a semi-residency in HRT now, and I've become quite the expert in it. So there's that one plus. But it took me finally getting involved in some Facebook groups and forums, and I've always learned from patients, but I've learned from other people because I was chasing these symptoms to kind of go, something else is up. So we had Dr. Tyler Painsner on our show, if you don't remember. That was, I'm trying to think, that was in this last spring. We'll look up the episode. But I did hire Tyler to do my epigenetics and testing. And after that bore a whole bunch of light on the problem. He didn't diagnose this long COVID thing, but he said, you have a lot of problems with your genetics and metabolizing histamine. And I kept saying, I'm having trouble with my hormone replacement. Please help me figure this out. What can I take? What can I not take? And the nurse practitioner I was working with, who was very amazing and well educated in a lot of biochemical pathways and so forth, when we got my epigenetics back from Tyler, and I said, look at all this histamine issues, this kind of makes sense. She said, and you could see the light bulb moment go off for her, this is all histamine, absolutely. So I'm like, what? So we started going down that path and still kind of blaming the hormones and histamine. And now this is getting into this year into
Right.
it. then it was try these supplements to block histamine. And so all I'm going to say is the next thing that happened for me was going down the route of alternative medicine and trying every supplement in the book. Histamine, mast cell blocking things, one thing after the other, because I'm not thinking COVID really caused this. I'm thinking this is genetics that I was born with. A lot of things, this
Right.
epigenetics are
but the
good.
question that we didn't ask, which was the obvious question to ask, is if it's your genetics, you've had this your whole life, what changed? Something changed in the last 3 years.
Well, I blamed it on all the stressors we
There's
had.
always something to blame it on.
I blamed it on multiple stressors at once. Like I said, multiple surgeries. I know my gut microbiome isn't the greatest. Stress, the hormones, the whole shebang. And not really thinking there was another culprit. So the next thing that can happen, of course, as we know, and we've talked about before, is that just because Western medicine and big pharma can be bad, alternative medicine has its own problems too, because it can be helpful, but you can just be on as many stupid supplements as you are pharmaceuticals, and those interact really potently sometimes
With your metabolic pathways.
I found out from some
Yes.
of them, they are pretty potent. And the more you keep piling on, the more you don't know what's happening. So I went down that route for a while. Fast forward to this early spring and summer, and actually I developed an autoimmune condition out of the blue. The family history of it, my mom had, I believe, pernicious anemia, and my lab tests show now suddenly I have this autoimmune condition. Why did that happen? So I'm thinking maybe it's because it's hereditary, and I'm thinking, man, there's been a lot of autoimmune stuff happening. I'm thinking COVID in the back of my mind. And one of my healthcare provider people, I'll just say, said, let's check your spike protein level. And I'm like, what the heck? Why would we do that? Now, there's two main labs down here. One is Quest and one is LabCorp. I went to Quest most of the time. And when I got my spike protein test back, actually the first time she did it, I did not know she was doing it. It kind of surprised me. It came back and it said greater than 2,500.
Okay, let's just pause for 1 sec. This is a spike protein antibody test.
Correct. Spike protein
we do
antibody.
not yet have a commercially available spike protein antigen test that's quantitative. So what does that mean? That means you can go to CVS and buy an antigen test and swab your nose, and it'll be yes, no for whether or not you have COVID or
Correct.
RNA.
Correct.
What we don't have is we don't have a spike protein test that tells you how many gazillion spike proteins you have in your body.
Not commercially available.
But hopefully soon,
Right.
actually hopefully in the next few months. What we do have is we do have an antibody test. What's interesting is if you look at this antibody test, and we've had conversations with Peter McCullough and others about this, your COVID antibody, spike protein antibody test should be around 2,000 or less.
Yeah, he says usually around 1,000 or less, meaning, so what happens?
It's correlated with if the antibody test is high, you're probably still producing spike protein or have a ton of it in your body, is what the thinking is.
Yes, and he had a really good Substack article that published, and I shared it on our, I believe on our Facebook page and Instagram,
So what was your
in our
level?
Substack. So here's the problem. The Quest maxes out at 2,500, and it won't go any higher. It's at greater than 2,500. And I thought, I got some antibodies to COVID, and lo and behold, I should, because I was super sick with it twice. We did get the first round of Pfizer's vaccines, but we're thinking it was maybe more saline. But anyway, I thought I should have antibodies, right? Well, my practitioner said it shouldn't be that high. And I had she did it a second time to check, and it was still elevated. As I'm getting worse over the summer, and I'm still messing with my hormones and trying different things, I really started to wonder about COVID as I'm listening to podcasts of all sorts, various people talking about long COVID and seeing this new type of thing, especially a lot of nutritionists and people in the health industry that deal with people with autoimmune things, histamine problems, saying, it's amazing how many of these people are all connected. They have long COVID, and we're seeing them have mast cell issues. And I'm like, I think that's what I have. I got in some Facebook groups, and I'm like, I hate to say it, but I am exactly like these people. I've had this problem all my life, but it went berserk and bazonkers, like multiple times worse
3
years ago, which correlates with
right after you had COVID really bad.
Yes, and we're working in clinics, and I don't know, we're getting you're bringing it home, shedding, I don't know. So I kind of think, okay, this is probably the case. And I was reading Peter's Substack article one morning in bed, and I texted him and said, I've just gone to Quest, and mine's 2,500. I don't know, could it be that I have this long COVID for real? And he said, go to LabCorp, and it's $69. You can buy your own test online on the LabCorp site. You can order it yourself, $69. Go into the lab, and it's a quantitative. It will give you the exact amount of antibody, spike protein antibody titer. It doesn't reach a rev limiter like Quest. Mine was 12,000, and I just got that back in October. And he's like, well, that explains a lot of your symptoms. Now what? And so we've had a lot going on this fall. And it's brought me around to the point of realizing that I got to get probably rid of this stuff in my body. And now, you know, have we had anybody on talking about spike protein detox or how to get rid of it in detail?
Trozy.
Yeah,
Trozy on. You talked a little bit about that.
So that is a whole other avenue, and a man I've spent hundreds of hours listening and reading about that, because that is an area of medicine that's just opening up. Everybody's got opinions, from the nicotine patch protocol and people on Instagram that are big influencers making money off of their $12 ebooks telling you that it cures everything, from their menopause symptoms to their cardiac symptoms to their
liquor.
It's the nicotine patch. There's Peter McCullough has a protocol that's been researched. However, a lot of those ingredients in there would put my mast cell problem into overdrive, because some of the ingredients I can't take, and they'd make us worse, the people with mast cell issues. There's a lot of money and clinics that will charge you thousands and thousands of dollars for protein electrophoresis, EBOO, which is, you know, ozone therapy for your blood, to this supplement and that supplement. There's people have spent their savings trying to get rid of this. And so I'm going to try to do something, but not go foolishly into this. I have to admit, I did try the nicotine patch for 10 days, and I wouldn't do well as a smoker or a nicotine patch.
I don't know, you'd look cool, though.
But
I mean, that's right? Why do you smoke? Because it makes you look cool.
And
it's awesome.
I'm going to say that I have looked into working with a couple of experts. I'd like to get a few more of them on the show. And,
but that's...
and for me, I'm still trying to live day to day. And like, for instance, last night was a bad one because I'm in this histamine cycle again, and I go to bed and I take all this antihistamines and all this medicine, and I can still wake up at 4, and the panic literally starts. I'm hot, I'm pacing, I can't sleep, I want to go for a run, and then it's, you know, I'm in the bathroom. And then it goes away after hours, and it's debilitating.
And then it goes away for weeks.
Yeah.
And then it, like, so if I can, not to interrupt you.
So I just want to...
Because you're usually interrupting me because I'm the talker.
I want to just wrap all that up, because that was a lot about me, but people need to hear that. Even the doctor really didn't know where this was coming from. There's a lot of stuff out there.
Well, it's not just the doctor. We have interviewed the world experts on this. We have sunk thousands and thousands of hours into listening and talking and reading and researching all of this. And this was still a mystery to us. Because if you don't think it, you will never find it. If you don't ask the question, could this be essentially spikeopathy, you'll never find it.
And, you know, and here's the point. What I've heard from a lot of people is that they go doctor to doctor, Western medicine doctor shopping, And a lot of
we
docs
probably
don't even know about it.
100 million times more than most Western doctors about
people
this.
will just get blown off. And there's very little long COVID clinics out there. You can look them up. They're hard to get into. The wait lists for some of them is like a year plus. Often you have to fly to a different state. It's cash pay. And even then, the protocols or the things, supplements they're trying are experimental, but there's not a lot being said, and there's not a lot out there.
So if I may, I want to try to kind of tie this all together and explain to you what we're going to do with the BS Free MD side of the show for hopefully the next year, and maybe God knows until this problem is solved, which maybe never. First of all, think of that spike protein. It isn't COVID. It is the spike protein. The spikeopathy or COVID or whatever you want to call it is a great unmasker. Okay? So just like the COVID pandemic unmasked all these totalitarian impulses from all of these governments all over the world and ripped the Band-Aid off of a whole lot of us and red-pilled a lot of us, there's a lot of people that have underlying metabolic problems, or they have their 5 cells from getting cancer, but their immune system is just good enough to keep it under surveillance. And then they get hit with a spikeopathy, and boom, they have turbo cancer. Or they have mast cell activation syndrome, and they're fine, and they take some meds, and they're running, they have 15% reserve left in their gas tank, and they get a spikeopathy, and boom, they're in a histamine hell. And so it is the great unmasker. And so you have to ask yourself, if you all of a sudden have chronic illness that you have suffered with before, but it got a gazillion times worse in the last 3 years, have you unmasked something with a spikeopathy? That's number one. Right. Number two, to solve this is the wild freaking West. We have interviewed most of these people, and we like virtually all of them. Peter McCullough has nattokinase. Pierre Corey is going down more of the ivermectin route. Sabine Hazen, it's the gut microbiome. And they're all right. They're all correct. But no one has the absolute great unifying theory answer to this.
There's one expert that I hope to get on the show.
I think all of this is great, and they're pieces to the puzzle. But whether they're the correct pieces for every single person, I don't know. So be very, very cautious of practitioners that have 100% the answer. They don't.
No. What I do know, and I won't drop names right yet, but I would like to get her on the show. There's this one expert that's very connected internationally, is that because there's so many different ways that you're right, the spike protein can interact with your immune system, whether it be unleashing, your autoimmune system, or the cancer surveillance system, or impacting clotting issues. It's not just like one thing. It affects so many parts of the body. Right. Dementia can get, exquisitely worse quickly.
Right. And what did we do in nursing homes? We kept squirting spike protein into all these old people.
So to know what the best way to clear, they don't even know how do you clear it from the system. You have to break down that spike protein, but then you have to remove it some way, and as well as everybody's body not microbiology, your biochemistry, your epigenetics are so unique as to how things are working and where your roadblocks are, that they literally, it is like experimenting until they really figure out a way to test. And I think over the next, this is just a can of worms, not just the cancer, turbo cancers we talked about, or clotting, but this autoimmune thing that's happening, and progression of autoimmune diseases and neuropathy. I think for the next 100 years, we will be talking and discovering more.
Right, and the thing is, to wrap this up, I think we're at the very, very tip of the iceberg. I think we are reaching a point now, I would have never said this a year ago, but I think we're reaching a point now with whether you're vaxxed or unvaxxed, it means nothing. I think that there is shedding. I think that we are bathing in COVID. My level was 7,400, so about half of May's. Why was mine 7,400? We were convinced that when we were vaccinated once, we didn't get anything, which I'm convinced we didn't. But I go to work and I see people that have been vaxxed 9 times. I go to work, I see people that have had COVID 20 times or whatever it is. Maybe that's an exaggeration.
Well, and that one study that just got published.
It's everywhere. You see these reports of airline pilots that spend hours and hours in a cockpit with a vaccinated person, and they have spikeopathy, and they never got COVID, and they never got the vaccine. Well, where the hell did it come from? Clearly, it was shedding. So I think we're getting to a point now.
Well, they found it in utero in a pregnant mother who'd never been vaccinated.
Never been vaccinated, and I
it's in her
think never had
fetal tissue.
COVID. Yeah, so it's like this frickin' spike protein, this this atomic bomb of biologic hell that was released on us is a reality, and we're going to have to deal with it. Don't get fooled. Don't get snake charmed. Don't give your money away. I know that there's going to be a lot of desperate people. We are going to try to bring the BS-free side to this, where one of our mottos is we reserve the right to be wrong. We don't pretend to have all knowledge, but we will ask very good, truthful questions, and we'll tell you when we're wrong, and we'll call bullshit on what the bullshit is, because there's tons of it out there, and it's only going to get crazier, and I think there's going to be a lot more sick people from all this spikeopathy bullshit. I am absolutely convinced of that. You see it at work. You see these reports of 45-year-olds dropping dead of colon cancer. I've never heard of that in my entire life. It was so unusual for something like that to happen.
Or pancreatitis.
Yeah, or pancreas.
That's just been crazy on the rise, and I think of the.
Like, how do you get pancreatitis? You get pancreatitis usually two ways. There's a million ways you can get it, but you drink way too much, you get really drunk, and you get pancreatitis, or you have a gallstone.
Yeah, and it used to be so rare. I think I remember one case of pancreatic cancer ever in
this
my career.
frickin' spike protein is so inflammatory, and these frickin' geniuses decided to take the most inflammatory part of the COVID virus and make that the vaccine. And don't just make it a vaccine, make it a gene therapy that makes your body make it. Like honest to God, that is like from the third bowel of hell. And we are experiencing this personally, and I'm telling you, this second and third order effects of what happened from the vaccine and from COVID itself, and now from the shedding and all of this, we have no idea what's coming. And be prepared, do your own research, think for yourself, and we will hopefully be there with the BS-free approach to help you think through it properly. Because no one, no matter how great they are, no matter how much you like them, no matter how much it includes us, has all the answers to this.
You're right. So I'm excited for the 6th season coming up, and I'll keep you posted as updates on what I'm doing as it unfolds and as the information gets real.
Well, and if May has a miracle cure, we'll tell you, and then we'll sell it to you. Like everybody else.
Put it in a bottle, and here
That's
you
right.
go.
All right.
Anyway.
Until next time.
Thanks for listening.
Stay BS free.
It's no secret that medicine is a bit, uptight. That's why Tim and I created BS Free MD, to mix things up a little and have fun in the process. Besides, we are having these exact same discussions all the time, so we thought we might as well invite everyone to the party. If you really like us, you can get plenty more, and maybe see one of Tim's cool tattoos on our Instagram or Facebook pages at BS Free MD. See you next time.
While we try to keep BS Free MD as raw and real as possible, we can't be held responsible for any medical decisions or discussions had as a result of what you've heard on the show. We know, bummer. But the truth is, we really do care about your questions. So feel free to reach out to us by email at doc@bsfreemd.com.